Whenever a major disaster happens, people usually immediately check two books. The first one is, of course, the Bible. It has provided comfort and guidance to many, while many others read the Bible to see if the disasters were predicted in Bible codes. Many people also check Nostradamus' prophecies because it seems that he has never been absent from any such problems. Nostradamus wrote 942 quatrains. If I want to, I can pin anything to a quatrain and I will sound as believable as the History Channel's 2016 election interpretations. Just hours ago, a plane carrying the famous pop star turned cleric Junaid Jamshed died with the other 47 people when the plane crashed in Pakistan. His life and death seem to be depicted in this Century 8, number 53. Quote, "Within Bologna he will want to wash away his misdeeds. He cannot at the temple of the sun. He will fly away, doing very great things. In the hierarchy, he had never an equal." So you see, once a popular pop star, Junaid must have had misdeeds that he chose to devote his life as a cleric. Doesn't that prove how he washed away his misdeeds so he can be at the temple of the sun? And he flew away from this world as he perished from the plane crash. Obviously, there won't be anyone like him again. I did it with the intention to prove that I can find a quatrain for any event if I look hard enough. But the accuracy of this quatrain on Junaid Jamshed's life made me think if the quatrain was really about him. Doesn't Junaid Jamshed look just like Nostradamus? Even the hat and the beard. Since Nostradamus predicted his death, maybe there's a connection between Nostradamus and Junaid, right? One reason that Nostradamus' quatrains are open to different interpretations is its lack of time sequence. Unlike the famous Chinese prophecy Tui Bei Tu from the 7th century, Hua Tiangang made the prediction based on I Ching. It correctly predicted all major wars and dynasty changes in China for the past 1,300 years in just 38 quatrains. To make it easier to understand, each quatrain came with a picture. Like number 39 is about Japan's 1931 invasion of China. Number 40 is about 1949 Chinese Civil War. Number 41 showed the forming of Red China. Number 42 is about the Taiwanese government. Once you decode a quatrain, you know what's coming next. Tui Bei Tu is simple and straightforward. Let me show you the number 2, which is about the Tang Dynasty. It shows a plate with 21 fruits on the top, with a poem saying, "Do you know how many plums there are? One fruit for one, with the new one comes after the old one is gone." There were 21 emperors in the Tang Dynasty. The last name for emperors in the Tang Dynasty is Li, Chinese name for plums. There's only one female emperor in China. She was the 4th one in the Tang Dynasty, while the 4th one from the top in the picture has no stock. Isn't that amazing? Fast forward to number 39, the poem reads as, quote, "Bird with no legs, mountain with a moon. When the sun rises, everyone cries." Everyone knows the sun represents Japan. Its World War II invasion cost 6 million Chinese lives. That's why everyone cried. As for the bird, this is the Chinese symbol of the bird. And this is the symbol for a mountain. When you take out the legs in this bird symbol and replace it with the mountain symbol, you get a new word. This word means island. This is a clear warning that an island country called Japan would launch an attack to China. So, what does that have to do with us? Well, when we dig deeper into Nostradamus' doomsday prophecy, we will take another look at the Chinese doomsday prophecy. Since Chinese prophecy has reliable timelines and an excellent track record, it will help us know more about the doomsday. One puzzle most of us have is why Nostradamus doesn't just write his quatrains century by century, year by year, so we can know what to expect next. Why does he make it so complicated? Doesn't he know we are simple people? Now, everyone can guess, but no one can know if they guessed it right. Actually, I think he started writing down warnings, but the warnings just kept on coming, not in sequence. He probably does not even know when it will happen, but he felt it is his duty to warn us. Seems to me he started with warnings about the French Revolution. Let me show you what I noticed in his Century 1 quatrains. Quatrain 1 and 2 seem to be his opening statement. 101, quote, "Sitting alone at night in secret study, it is placed on the brass tripod. A slight flame comes out of the emptiness and makes successful that which should not be believed in vain." 102, quote, "The wand in the hand is placed in the middle of the tripod's legs. With water he sprinkles both the hem of his garment and his foot. A voice, fear. He trembles in his robes. Divine splendor. The god sits nearby." One thing I noticed in his mentioning of tripod in both quatrains, I don't know if tripod means anything else in 16th century France, but it sounds to me like him setting up a tripod and ready to record a movie, only it is in the form of quatrains. Then I think he started his predictions about the coming revolution. Quote, "When the litters are overturned by the whirlwind and faces are covered by cloaks, the new republic will be troubled by its people. At this time, the reds and the whites will rule wrongly." This quatrains needs no interpretation, as the word New Republic said it all. While although democracy is generally a good thing, you can't say that during the Reign of Terror from 9/5/1793 to July 28, 1794. The chaos and mass execution under the flag of red, white, and blue ruled the country wrongly, and the French people suffered. And the situation was further clarified by Nostradamus's quatrain 104, quote, "In the world there will be made a king who will have little peace and a short life. At this time the ship of the papacy will be lost, governed to its greatest detriment." During the Reign of Terror, the leader had more power than a king, although there was no king. There a king was made, and they brought terror and destruction to the French people. That's why there was little peace mentioned. And fortunately, it did not last long. During that time when there was no religious guidance, which was referred to as papacy lost, well, the harm they brought to the state can be called a great detriment. The description of the horror continued in quatrain 105, quote, "They will be driven away for a long drawn-out fight. The countryside will be most grievously troubled. Town and country will have a greater struggle. Carcassonne and Narbonne will have their hearts tried." And the next one seemed to be the continuation of this French Revolution vision. Quatrain 106, quote, "The eye of Ravenna will be forsaken, when his wings will fall at his feet. The two of Brice will have made a constitution, for Turn and Vercelli, which the French will trample underfoot." From 1792 to 1793, the Austrian and Prussian armies tried to save Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, sister of Austrian Emperor Leopold II. They declared war with France but lost. The French were so excited over these victories, there was talk of French expansion to its natural frontiers, the Pyrenees, the Alps, and the Rhine. Then the next quatrain, 107, although not 100% clear, seemed to still be about the French Revolution. Quote, "Arrive too late, the act has been done. The wind was against them, letters intercepted on their ways. The conspirators were 14 of a party. By Rousseau shall these enterprises be undertaken." It is hard to say who are the 14 conspirators, but for the tens of thousands killed during the French Revolution, picking 14 should be pretty easy. In quatrain 108, quote, "How often will you be captured, O city of the sun? Changing laws that are barbaric and vain, bad times approach you. No longer will you be enslaved. Great Dadre will revive your veins." During the Reign of Terror, Paris was a city of terror. People are no longer slaves under the new republic, but the changed law was barbaric and vain. It is a bad time full of hatred, with anger boiling blood in veins. People killing each other. Luckily, it didn't last too long. With France in chaos, the French colonies were affected too. Quatrain 109, quote, "From the Orient will come the African heart, to trouble Hadri and the heirs of Romulus, accompanied by the Libyan fleet. The temples of Malta and nearby islands shall be deserted." I think this quatrain marks the end of the opening clusters of the French Revolution prophecies. Let's check on the next one. This is about a Russian revolution in 1917. Quatrain 110, quote, "A coffin is put into the vault of iron, where 7 children of the king are held. The ancestors and forebears will come forth from the depths of hell, lamenting to see thus dead the fruit of their line." The Russian Tsar Nicholas II, his wife, and 5 children were all killed on March 15, 1917. All 7 of them are children of kings. All 7 of them were killed. This put an end to the Romanov family, as there were no survivors to even claim the billions held in a Swiss bank. This is a prophecy fulfilled with chilling accuracy. Louis XVI succeeded the French throne in 1774. He was a 19-year-old with an enormous responsibility. The government was deeply in debt. He wanted to be a good king, and he wanted to win the love of his people. To end the religious tensions, he signed the Edict of Versailles, granting non-Roman Catholics, Huguenots, Lutherans, and Jews the legal right to practice their faiths. Then he tried hard to solve France's financial crisis, but got no cooperation from anyone. The nobles said the king had no right to levy new taxes, so he tried to take out large international loans, like our selling treasury bonds today. Unfortunately, that did not go well either. To show his part of the effort, he even published a statement of the French crown's expenses in 1781, a tradition faithfully followed by most world leaders till today, of course, except for Donald Trump. But no matter how hard he tried, nothing seemed to work. In 1783, he hired Charles Alexandre de Calonne, hoping to solve the financial crisis by increasing public spending, kind of to buy the country's way out of debt. Again, that failed. In 1787, King Louis invoked the Assembly of Notables to discuss a revolutionary new fiscal reform. When the nobles learned the extent of the debt, they were shocked and rejected the plan. You see, contrary to public belief, Louis XVI was a good king. His attempts at international loans, public spending, raising taxes on the upper class were all quite ahead of his time. Did Nostradamus see the fate of this unfortunate king? Absolutely. Let me show you what I have found. Quatrain 1:14, quote, "From the enslaved populace, songs, chants, and demands, while princes and lords are held captive in prisons, these will in the future by headless idiots be received as divine prayers." The French Revolution ran on the high notes of La Marseillaise. During the Reign of Terror from September 1793 till July 1794, nobles were sent to prisons before being sent to the guillotine. The country was ruled by fanatics, the headless idiots, like Louis Philippe II, Duke of Orleans. Louis XVI, cousin, who was also France's richest man, he voted for Louis XVI's death, but soon later lost his own head. In Quatrain 188, quote, "The divine wrath overtakes the great prince. A short while before he will marry. Both supporters and credit will suddenly diminish counsel. He will die because of the shaven heads." Did you know that in 1770, when 15-year-old Louis married 14-year-old Habsburg Archduchess Maria Antonia, the French public was not happy with the match? During the Seven-Year War, France's alliance with Austria dragged France into financial chaos. While the French public felt insulted after the defeat by the British and the Prussians, they blamed the Queen, and this quatrain clearly showed Louis XVI's unpopular marriage and the effects on his people. In Quatrain 2:02, quote, "The blue head will inflict upon the white head as much evil as France has done them good. Dead at the sail yard, the great one hung on the branch. When seized by his own, the king will say, 'How much?'" During the French Revolution, conflicts between two rival political factions, the Girondins and the Jacobins, brought more bloodshed to the already chaotic time. With French flags being red, white, and blue, calling this a conflict between blue and white seemed to be perfect. Over 40,000 died across France during the Reign of Terror. In Louis XVI's trial of 1792, the convention's secretary, Jean-Baptiste Malhy, presented the following accusation. Quote, "Louis, the French nation accuses you of having committed a multitude of crimes to establish your tyranny in destroying her freedom." Through his defense team, the king answered all 33 accusations for his defense. He was accused of bribing, improper payments to guards, and many more. With the accusation of bribery, it is possible that the king did ask, "How much?" when he was seized by his own people. Of course, no money can save him from his ruin. In Quatrain 4:64, quote, "The transgressor in bourgeois garb, he will come to try the king with his offense. 15 soldiers, for the most part bandits, last of life and chief of his fortune." This quatrain gives another vivid description of Louis XVI's trial. The transgressor wears bourgeois garb, named for middle-class clothes. This is to show who was behind the trial. Raymond Desez, the king's defense lawyer, stated, "Louis ascended the throne at the age of 20, and at the age of 20 he gave to the throne the example of character. He brought to the throne no wicked weaknesses, no corrupting passions. He was economical, just severe. He showed himself always the constant friend of the people. The people wanted the abolition of servitude. He began by abolishing it on his own lands. The people asked for reforms in the criminal law. He carried out these reforms. The people wanted liberty. He gave it to them. The people themselves came before him in his sacrifices. Nevertheless, it is in the name of these very people that one today demands, "Citizens, I cannot finish. I stop myself before history. Think how it will judge your judgment, and that the judgment of him will be judged by the centuries." At Louis XVI's death, it brought to an end the royal Bourbon rule. His life, fortune, and the French monarchy all ended with him just as depicted in the quatrain. In quatrain 465, quote, "Towards the deserter of the great fortress, after he will have abandoned his place, his adversary will exhibit very great prowess. The emperor soon dead will be condemned." On the 21st of June, 1791, when Louis XVI attempted to flee secretly with his family from Paris to the royalist fortress town of Montmedy on the northeastern border of France, they were caught and the French public felt betrayed. Although Austria tried unsuccessfully to save Louis XVI, things turned for the worse when the brother of the Queen, Emperor Leopold II of the Holy Roman Empire, died in March 1792. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette soon followed and lost their lives. In quatrain 902, quote, "By night will come through the forest of rains. Two couples round about rout Queen the white stone, the monk king in gray in Varines. Elected Cabot causes tempest, fire, blood, slice." This quatrain did not strike me till I started my keyword research. But look what I found when I searched for Marie Antoinette and the White Stone. This article jumped up and the White Stone was mentioned as a land marked on their escape to Varines. Forest of Rains, closest to Sanzy, was on the route to Austria. How can Nostradamus know all these details 200 years before it happened? Then when I searched for the word the monk king, I found it as the name for Ramiro II of Aragon, the medieval Spain ruler who decapitated all the noblemen who had dared to challenge his royal power. Was that Louis XVI's intention to kill off his rebellious enemies? He was captured in Varines with gray outlook, and when he was charged for treason, the indictment was for Citizen Louis Capet. It is the name the Reign of Terror leader elected to call him. Nostradamus carefully used these words to paint a vivid picture of the events in horror. Like the use of tempest to describe the political and social storms, the word slice to describe the guillotine. Do you still call that a lucky guess? I don't think so. In quatrain 977, quote, "The realm taken the king will conspire. The lady taken to death one's swome by lot. They will refuse life to the queen and son, and the mistress at the fort of the wife." Even though Louis XVI viewed his attempt to escape as a way to protect himself and his family, the French public viewed it as his intent to conspire with foreign powers. And Marie Antoinette was believed to have passed military secrets that caused several defeats of the French armies by the Austrians. Eventually, the queen was beheaded while the son, Dauphin of France, died in prison. These events were accurately described in the first 3 lines of this quatrain. But what does the 4th line mean? What does the mistress at the fort of the wife mean? I believe it is about Marie Louise de Lamballe, also known as Princess Marie Louise of Savoy, who was rumored to be the lover of Marie Antoinette.
So that is what mistress of the wife means. As the richest woman in France, she stayed in London to seek help for the royal families, but returned to France to serve the king, queen, and royal children she governed. When she was put to trial and asked to denounce the king and queen, she refused. She was thrown to a crowd of men and died a horrible death. I want to share with you what Louis XVI said after his trial, quote, "You have heard my defense. I would not repeat the details. In talking to you perhaps for the last time, I declare that my conscience reproaches me with nothing, and my defenders have told you the truth. I never feared the public examination of my conduct, but my heart is torn by the imputation that I would want to shed the blood of the people, and especially that the misfortunes of August the 10th be attributed to me. I avow that the many proofs that I have always acted from my love of the people, and the manner in which I have always conducted myself, seem to prove that I did not fear to put myself forward in order to spare their blood and forever prevent such an imputation." Knowing what we know today, it is easy to unlock the mystery behind Nostradamus' quatrains about Louis XVI, but it is not as easy to unlock the future mystery hidden still in the Book of Prophecy. But we are one step closer to decoding the mystery with every quatrain we decode.
To understand Nostradamus' quatrains, you first must understand Nostradamus. He was a physician, an astrologer, who lived in a time of religious conflicts and persecutions. This may be why he has to hide the true meanings of his prophecies in the poem-like quatrains. In 1555, Nostradamus published his first part of his Book of Prophecies. Then in 1556, Queen Catherine asked Nostradamus to come to Paris. He worked as a physician for Catherine de Medici, Queen of France, between 1547 and 1559. He grouped the poems in 100 and called them a century. The last 58 quatrains in Century 7 were lost, so we have only 942 of his predictions today. One of his most famous predictions was fulfilled in 1559 when Henry II of France died. Nostradamus' quatrain number 1 through 35, quote, "The young lion will overcome the older one. On the field of combat in a single battle, he will pierce his eyes through a golden cage. 2 wounds made one, then he dies a cruel death. Personally, I am not that impressed. Comet de Montgomery, who wounded Henry II in a jousting accident, was only 6 years younger than Henry II of France. It is a bit stretching calling him young at age 34. In 1556, Queen Catherine asked Nostradamus to plot the horoscope of her 7 children. We don't know what else was said to Queen Catherine, but just from what was in the Book of Prophecy, the predictions seem to have been fulfilled with undisputable accuracy. Quatrain 407, quote, "The minor son of the great and hated prince. He will have a great touch of leprosy at the age of 20. Of grief his mother will die very sad and emaciated, and he will die where the loose flesh falls." I believe the minor son is a reference to Queen Catherine's youngest son, Duke of Anjou, Hercules, who later changed his name to Francis. He became heir to the throne at age 20. and he was infected with smallpox at age 8, which left him scarred, kind of similar to leprosy. Although he died in 1584 and never became the king, his life caused great sadness to his mother as he joined Protestant lords and forced his brother Henry III to sign the pro-Protestant Peace of Monsieur. After losing the war in Antwerp, he became seriously ill with malaria. His mother brought him back to Paris, where he did reconcile with his brother, King Henry III, before his untimely death at age 29. In another quatrain, 629, more reference to the conflicts between her sons, quote, "The saintly widow, hearing the news of her offspring placed in perplexity and trouble, he who will be instructed to appease the quarrels, he will pile them up by his pursuit of the shaven heads." Catherine's youngest son, Duke of Anjou's fraction with the crown was devastating to both his brother the king and his mother, Catherine de Medici. She is said to have written to him the following, quote, "Would to God you had died young. You would then not have been the cause of the death of so many brave gentlemen." From this quote alone, you can see how his widowed mother felt about the fights between her two sons. Although these are probably not the predictions Queen Catherine wished to hear, these predictions did come true the way they were described to her. Here are some more predictions I found about her children. 185. Quote, "The king is troubled by the queen's reply. Ambassadors will fear for their lives. The greater of his brothers will doubly disguise his action. 2 of them will die through anger, hatred, and envy." I believe this is about King Charles IX of France, Catherine's second king's son. Charles and both his brothers were candidates to marry Queen Elizabeth I. Any lady should jump on the offer, right? King Charles must be troubled by the Queen's reply. Who can refuse such a proposal? Especially when she was offered to pick any of the 3. If it did not work, it must be the fault of the incompetent ambassadors, right? Actually, in 1560, when King Charles IX was first listed as Queen Elizabeth's suitor, he was only 10, while his brother Henry was 9, and brother Francis was only 5. Elizabeth I was 27. And with a long list of other suitors to pick, you can't blame her for turning down King Charles's offer. After all, who wants to wait for a husband to grow up? However, in 1579, Catherine's youngest son, Duke of Anjou, the 24-year-old Francis, became the only foreign suitor to court Queen Elizabeth. Despite the age difference, the two soon became very close. But English Protestant nobles warned the Queen that, quote, "The hearts of the English people will be galled when they shall see you take a husband, a Frenchman, and a Papist." Yet between 1578 and 1581, the Queen resurrected attempts to negotiate a marriage with him. But in 1581, Elizabeth finally said farewell to him. On his departure, she penned a poem on Monsieur's departure, which showed that she was serious about marrying him, at least at one time. When Charles's youngest brother died at age 29, followed by King Henry III's assassination in 1589, the last part of this prophecy quatrain was fulfilled, as they both died with anger, hatred, and envy. I'm surprised that no one before me thought that this to be a prophecy about Charles III. Maybe they thought it was a queen talking to her king. But the ambassador reference made it quite clear that was not the case. Most of Nostradamus' prophecies are about people he never met. With the exception of Queen Catherine de' Medici and Queen Mary of Scots. Did Nostradamus warn Catherine about Queen Mary's miserable life ahead? Does that have anything to do with Queen Catherine's resentment of her? What he told Queen Catherine can never be known, but you get to see what was written about her in the Book of Prophecy. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. But for Nostradamus, the mystery of tomorrow was his challenge to solve today. When I first heard about Nostradamus in elementary school, I was really confused. He is called the greatest prophet ever, but he can't even spell. He called Napoleon as Pa, Nay, Laron, and Hitler as Hister. If I were to make the same mistakes, I would have failed my history classes. But my interest in Nostradamus and his doomsday predictions remained. Like many people, I felt totally disappointed after watching History Channel's Nostradamus 2016 election prediction. The quatrains used in the program obviously had little to do with the 2016 election. In quatrain Century 1, number 86, quote, "The great queen, upon seeing herself vanquished, will exhibit an excess of masculine courage. On horseback she will ride totally unprotected, pursued by swordsmen, an act of outrage." Calling Hillary, that is almost like calling me King of Scots. Actually, that quatrain was a great depiction of Queen Mary of Scots' escape to England after her last defeat and before her 18 years of imprisonment by Queen Elizabeth I. And History Channel's calling of quatrain in Century 8, number 23, was even more far-fetched. The usual translation is, quote, "Letters attributed to the Queen are found in a casket. They bear neither signature nor author's name. The government conceals the offers within them, so that no one will know who was responsible." Quote, "Queen Mary's enemies submitted clever forged casket letters, pointing the murder of Mary's husband, Lord Darnley, to her." However, when I said I was disappointed, I meant I was disappointed at the History Channel's Nostradamus election special, not disappointed in Nostradamus. The two quatrains mentioned in the show led me to do more research, and I found some shocking fulfilled predictions. From the Indian Ocean tsunami, Japan's World War II invasion, NATO, opening of a channel tunnel, and the list goes on and on. I am not an expert of any kind, but I really have to admit that Nostradamus was a great prophet. Most people consider these quatrains useless because, for one, you can interpret them any way you want. Secondly, they can be applied to almost any circumstance, like how the History Channel twisted the quatrain to make it fit for the 2016 election. However, hold your conclusions till I show you some eye-popping, jaw-dropping predictions. Nostradamus wrote 942 quatrains. If I want to, I can pin anything to a quatrain and I will sound as believable as the History Channel's 2016 election interpretations. Just hours ago, a plane carrying the famous pop star turned cleric Junaid Jamshed died with the other 47 people when the plane crashed in Pakistan. His life and death seem to be depicted in this Century 8, number 53. Quote, "Within Boulogne he will want to wash away his misdeeds. he cannot at the temple of the sun. He will fly away, doing very great things. In the hierarchy, he had never an equal. So you see, once a popular pop star, Junaid must have had misdeeds that he chose to devote his life as a cleric. Doesn't that prove how he washed away his misdeeds so he can be at the temple of the sun? And he flew away from this world as he perished from the plane crash. Obviously, there won't be anyone like him again. Now, did I prove my case? There are lots of quatrains that can be interpreted any way you want, but it does not mean Nostradamus was not a great prophet. I found some quatrains that clearly predict future events in no uncertain terms. These are my personal interpretations. If you have better ones, please do not hesitate to share. I believe quatrain 268 is about the Channel Tunnels opening in 1994, which connected England and France. Quote, "The efforts of Aquilon will be great. The gate of the ocean will be opened. The kingdom on the isle will be restored. London will tremble, discovered by sail." And the creation of NATO is in quatrain 301. Quote, "After combat and naval battle, the great Neptune in his highest belfry, red adversary will become pale with fear, putting the great ocean in dread." NATO was created to stop the spread of the red communist. Red adversary and fear is the reason the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was formed. At century 5, quatrain 51, it stated, "The people of Dacia, England, Poland, and of Bohemia will make a new league to pass beyond the pillars of Hercules. The Barcelonians and Tuscans will prepare a cruel plot." The worst modern-day natural disaster, the Indian Ocean 2004 tsunami, was predicted in quatrain 303. Quote, "Mars and Mercury and the silver join together towards the south extreme drought. In the depths of Asia one will say the earth trembles. Corinth, Ephesus, then in perplexity." You may not know it, but Indonesia suffered a terrible drought in 2004, just like the quatrain predicted, and 230,000 people died in the quake and tsunami. Many quatrains are not specific, but how about this one? Century 3, quatrain 57, quote, "7 times you will see the British nation change, steeped in blood in 290 years, free not at all its support Germanic. Aries doubt his Bastarnian pole. Although the current royal bloodline traces back to the Tudor dynasty in 1485, the British throne had quite a turbulent history. The Stuart dynasty started when James VI of Scotland became James I of England. His son Charles took over the throne after his death in 1625, but was killed in the Cornwall Revolution in 1649, then followed by the restoration of Charles II in 1660. Then William of Orange succeeded Stuart dynasty, and in 1714 marks the start of the House of Hanover. In 1837, the House of Saxe-Coburg took over, which changed their names to the House of Windsor in 1917. How many such changes? 7. How many years between the Stuart 1625 to the Windsor of 1917? 292. Although most of the quatrains are about Europe, Asia was mentioned in a few of them, like this one in Century 3, quatrain 60. Quote, "Throughout all Asia Minor, great proscription, even in Mysia, Lycia, and Pamphylia. Blood will be shed because of the absolution of a young black one filled with felony. I think this is about Japan's invasion of Asia during World War II. When Japan started its first invasion of Manchuria in 1931, Emperor Hirohito was only 30, the young one. While I believe Nostradamus may not have got all the same right, it is quite close. Mysia is Malaysia. Pamphylia, I think, means Philippine. Lycia means Indonesia, or at least that is what I think. In Century 3, Quatrain 69, I believe it talks about Japan's surrender at World War II. Quote, "The great army led by a young man, it will come to surrender itself into the hands of the enemies." I think it is about Japan because no other young man led a great army in the last 400 years. Many young leaders lost in battle, but great army? That would be a good description for Japan's power military invasion. Don't you agree? There are so many Nostradamus decodings I want to share with you. However, your support will decide if this is a project I should take. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That is why we call it the present. This is true for most of us. But if we can understand Nostradamus's prophecies, maybe we can be prepared to face the unknown tomorrow better, right? Obviously, most of us can't see the future. That is why many of us are so interested in prophecy. However, Nostradamus did not earn and get his fame from cold readings. Many of his prophecies are stunningly accurate. But how do you even start to read the prophecy with 942 quatrains, each one with many different interpretations? Even the few accepted prophecy quatrains are too general and vague. I think the best way to win you over is to show you how Nostradamus foretold the story of Queen Mary of Scots in his Book of Prophecy. When Nostradamus met the 14-year-old Dauphine Mary Stuart, she was liked by everyone. She was exceptionally beautiful, intelligent way beyond her age, and very kind. Well, she was liked by everyone except her mother-in-law, Catherine de Medici. Did Nostradamus foresee the tragic life of Mary? Did he share that warning with Queen Catherine? Was that the reason Catherine refused to allow King Charles IX to marry Queen Mary after King Francis's passing? The prophecy about Queen Mary is quite unique in the Book of Prophecy because she was one of only a few people Nostradamus actually met and possibly did a horoscope reading on. She met Nostradamus when she was the happiest girl in the world. Did he foresee her troubled life? How about the unfair trial, the imprisonment, and the beheading? Maybe we can know more about her life through her future predicted in the Book of Prophecy. In Quatrain 10:55, quote, "The unfortunate nuptials will be celebrated in great joy, but the end unhappy. Husband and mother will slight the daughter-in-law, the Apollo dead and the daughter-in-law more pitiful." When Queen Mary returned to Scotland in 1561, she became the Catholic queen in a Protestant country. Before her return, some loyal Catholic nobles offered to fight for the restoration of the old faith, but she turned it down to avoid bloodshed. She was willing to practice her faith privately and treat the Protestant faith with respect. However, it was not enough for her greedy half-brother, the powerful Earl of Moray, and the power-hungry nobles. To fulfill her dynastic duties, she had to produce an heir. But before she could find a more suitable husband, she fell in love with her cousin, Lord Darnley, Henry Stuart. Darnley, son of her aunt, Lady Margaret Douglas, was tall, handsome, third to the throne of Scotland and the closest male heir with Tudor blood from the English throne. Their short-lived honeymoon ended when Darnley started to indulge with drinking and women. Mary found herself pregnant with the future King James. Darnley and her father-in-law, Matthew Stuart, plotted with Protestant lords to murder her secretary Rizzo and imprisoned her. When Darnley realized the plot was not to teach Mary a lesson, as he intended, but to kill her and the unborn baby, he changed sides and escaped with Mary. The Protestant lords viewed this escape as a betrayal, which led to the plot of Darnley's murder. When Darnley died, Darnley's parents accused Mary as the killer. She was then imprisoned by Queen Elizabeth and eventually killed, just as predicted in the quatrains. Then in quatrain 1084, quote, "The illegitimate girl so high, not low. The late return will make the grieved ones contented. The reconciled one will not be without debates, in employing and losing all his time." This seemed to be a good depiction of Lady Margaret, Queen Mary's mother-in-law. Her parents' divorce made her illegitimate in many people's eyes, but she was born in England, was once the heir to Henry VIII before King Edward was born. So it was quite fitting to call her the illegitimate girl so high. Lady Margaret sent Lord Darnley to Mary's wedding in France in 1558 and asked for the restoration of Lennox's title and estate. It is a title Matthew Stuart lost when he sided with England and invaded Scotland. Queen Mary did not grant the restoration, but gave young Darnley 1,000 gold crowns and a promise to help when the time is right. Now, when Queen Mary returned to Scotland as a widow, Lady Margaret took the opportunity to get back the estate as purpose for Darnley. The return of Lennox gave Queen Mary false hope. While their granting of their restoration was not welcomed by many lords, Lady Margaret lost no time in her action plan. But even when everything went as planned, in a few years, Darnley lost the crown and his life. Then in quatrain 140, quote, "The fortresses of the besieged shut up, through gunpowder sunk into the abyss. The traitors will all be stowed away alive. Never did such a pitiful schism happen to the sextons." The relationship between Queen Mary and Darnley changed after the murder of Rizzo, her Italian secretary. However, with the birth of their son, James, divorce was no longer an option. It had been rumored that Darnley planned on not standing by Mary, but when Darnley got seriously ill from syphilis, he realized that Mary was the only true family he had. Mary took him back and cared for him. But before he was fully recovered, gunpowder exploded in the basement of his residence, Kirkafield. The traitors murdered him in the garden before fleeing to the night. Then in quatrain 141, quote, "Female sex captive as a hostage will come by night to deceive the guards. The chief of the army, deceived by her language, will abandon her to the people. It will be pitiful to see." Mary was captured several times. First after the murder of Rizzo. She escaped that time with Darnley. And her only crime was that she believed as a Catholic, and her being a woman. She was then kidnapped and raped by Earl of Bothwell. No one came to her aid. And when she found that she was with Bothwell's child, she married Bothwell. Mary left with the Protestant lords who claimed that they came for her rescue. Bothwell was allowed to leave, but she was deceived, imprisoned, forced to abdicate. It was a pitiful tale. Then in quatrain 6, 69, quote, "The great pity will occur before long. Those who gave will be obliged to take. No protection, starving, withstanding cold and thirst, to pass over the mountains committing a great scandal." Before Mary agreed to marry James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, Bothwell showed her the Annesley Tavern Bond, a bond signed by the most powerful Scottish lords begging Mary to marry Bothwell. The great pity is that no one came to the Queen's aid when she was kidnapped. They gave support for her marriage to Bothwell, but took a stand against it after the marriage. Mary was offered a safe passage if she sent Bothwell away. But when she accepted the deal, they took away the promise. When she escaped to England, seeking Queen Elizabeth's support, she was held for 18 years before losing her life. In quatrain Century 1, number 86, quote, "The great queen, upon seeing herself vanquished, will exhibit an excess of masculine courage. On horseback, she will ride totally unprotected, pursued by swordsmen, an act of outrage." On the 2nd of May, 1568, Mary escaped from Lochleven Castle with the aid of George Douglas, brother of Sir William Douglas, the castle's owner. They managing to raise an army of 6,000 men, but she lost at the Battle of Langside. She fled south to England, but was imprisoned till she being executed 18 years later. To her evil half-brother Earl of Moray, imprisonment was not safe enough. To make a case against her, they presented the casket letter at her trial for Darnley's murder. In Century 8, number 23, quote, "Letters attributed to the Queen are found in a casket. They bear neither signature nor author's name. The government conceals the offers within them so that no one will know who is responsible." Originals of the casket letter can no longer be found, but inconsistency on timing and locations showed it was either forged or a total fabrication. From the way Nostradamus worded the quatrain, it was pretty clear that Queen Mary did not write the casket letter. For various reasons, I always believed Queen Mary of Scots was innocent of the charges against her. I'm glad to find Nostradamus on my side. Hope you agree with me too.
Long ago, she almost had it all. Pretty tall and slim, witty, kind and sweet. Rich beyond any dream, given everything. Like a fairy tale, only sad indeed. Dad was gone before her week was even over. Mom sent her to wed one she never met. She may own the world, but she was all alone. All she wanted was a home with love